what's up? Hello, I hope you all are doing well. If you're working with a Western calendar, welcome to the year 2021, a new year in an attempt to do better than we did this past year. I know for me that it certainly is. This year was difficult for me in terms of reading. I had a number of reading goals from a previous video that I absolutely did not get to, but I did want to touch on a few of them before I move today into my fourth quarter wrap-up for 2020, just to sort of talk about what I did achieve. Firstly, I am proud to say that by some miracle, I did manage to meet my Goodreads challenge reading goal of 40 books this year. I've been steadily increasing that number of the last few years, and 40 seems to be a really manageable number to hit, so that is what I have decided upon for 2021. And it was just right under the wire that I managed to read one more book, which I'll talk about in just a second. But other than that, one of the things that I did this year was to read a broader range of stories and voices, and also I watched the Never Let Me Go movie, which were two things on my long list of reading goals, and I am very proud that I got to both of them. I didn't get to any of the other things. One of the ones on there was to get through more of the books that I actually own, which our Shelf Sisters series has helped me to do, but at the same time, I did indeed get bogged down by my library holds list on a number of occasions. So, things to work on for the future. So that being said, this year I have decided to set myself up with just 4 goals. One, to do my Goodreads reading challenge of 40 books. I'm gonna keep on doing 40 books until I feel like moving it up or down. Sounds like a good idea, right? To continue reading a broader range of stories and voices, and ordinarily that's a goal I can accomplish quite well by curating the list of books for my library book club, but considering gathering in person is not exactly something that we're all to do right now, the library book club has been on hold for most of the year, which, as you can imagine, has been very disappointing for me, but we'll see if that gets revived later on as we continue to live the life that we are now in. Also this year, I still want to read more books I own. That includes tackling my nonfiction shelf again, and also to work on closed captioning a backlog of videos, something I have intended to do for a year now and still have not done it. So those are the things that I'll be working on in 2021 in my reading journey. But mostly today, I do want to talk about the books that I read in the last quarter of the year, which is October, November, and December of 2020. I began this quarter with returning some books to the library for a friend who had massive numbers of overdue finds, and because I live closer to the library than she does, I brought them back for her. The first book that she had that I said, you know, I've seen this around and I would like to read it myself given all the hype, was Red, White, and Royal Blue. This was a very cute book and fed into 3 interests of mine, which are American politics, the English monarchy, and contemporary romance novels, which I guess I've gotten into this year. I don't know why I'm surprised. Looking back on my reading in the last 10 years, this really seems like something that I shouldn't be surprised at. So I've now fallen firmly into this camp of people that reads contemporary romance books, and I'm pretty excited about it because they're all very lovely, nice escapes from a very strange place that we live in, which is modern day society. I really enjoyed this book. I did find the main character, Alex, to be quite insufferable, only because I went to university in DC for my undergrad, and I went to school with quite a number of people with his same mentality and personality, and it was insufferable then, and I found it insufferable in this book too. But other than that, I assume if I hadn't had that experience, I might have liked the book more. So a very cute, lovely story, and I am happy that I racked her fines up another $1 by keeping it another day. So sorry there, Alex, but it was worth it. For me, it was worth it. I then moved on to another contemporary romance called Well Played, which is the next book sort of in the Well Met, I guess you would say, trilogy. I read the first one, which was about a woman who moves to a very small town and gets involved in a Renaissance fair. This is a contemporary romance book, and this is the next book in that series, so to speak, that collection, and focuses on a different character. I have not done reviews of these, but I would highly recommend that you check out Olive's reviews from a book, Olive, and she has reviewed both of them and has some very glowing things to say about them. I didn't like this book quite so much as I liked the first one. I thought the way that the main character in this book was written, we sort of delve into whether or not she is more than she appears on the surface, but I don't think the writing really contributed well to making that clear. So this was something of a little bit of a letdown for me, but I am very excited for the third book, which is meant to be coming out this year, which focuses on Emily, who is the main character in the first book, her sister April, and what will become of her and her love life in this tiny, tiny town whose claim to fame is a massive Renaissance fair. At some point in late October, early November, while I was moving, I was listening a lot to a podcast that is called the Princess Diaries, which recaps all of the Princess Diaries books by Meg Cabot. And so at some point in there, I said, you know what, it's ridiculous. I talk about these books all the time. I had such a great experience reading them growing up. It's so strange to me that I don't own them. So I went out, and I'm very particular about the covers of these books because they have changed the titles of them over the years. They've changed the covers. They've changed the way that they're bound with what other books they're bound into. So I bought the first 6, which is volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, 5, and 6. Indeed, 4.5. This is what's considered half a book. And I read all of these at some point in there over again. They're extremely quick for someone who is very familiar with each of these stories. If you are familiar with the story of the Princess Diaries, either from the incredibly wonderful Anne Hathaway and Julie Andrews film, or from reading these yourself, then you'll know that they are about a young girl who, well, I shouldn't say young girl, but a teenager in New York City who discovers that she is the heir to a small principality in Europe called Genovia, and it is her diaries where she lets out her emotional feelings on being a high schooler and having the weight of royalty thrust upon her. So these are the first 7 books. There are 10 in the series. Obviously, I need to collect the rest of them, but finding the right covers is really important to me, and they do change as they move into modernity, but I read all of these somehow at some point, obviously in the right order. So next I read You Had Me at Ola, which was a book that I found out about from Rincey over at Rincey Reads. This is a contemporary romance featuring 2 characters who are both actors, and they are beginning a new television show, and they have experience, both of them, in soap operas and telenovelas, and so they're working in a new world of acting that they're not really familiar with, I guess. And it's just very cute because their characters are not really meant to like each other, but they obviously kind of grow together as according to the story, and the 2 characters in the book sort of don't like each other up front either. It's fascinating to sort of get snippets of the characters and the story that they're in, along with their actual story or the reality of it. This is really lovely. I found it really important for me to read this book because there are snippets of it that are written entirely in Spanish, and there's no contextual translation with that. And so for me, I had to sit there and do that work to actually find out what those things are, because I speak a handful of French and English natively. And that's all. I'm not exceptionally proficient with Spanish. And so I thought it was great that I had to sit there and do that work. This was just a really, really lovely book. I think I gave it 4 stars. Would recommend. It was cute. You could kind of see where it was going, but it was nice to be sort of dropped into a culture I didn't really understand in terms of television and how all of that works together. I don't know a lot about filming a television series, so it was lovely to have that as a read. Closer to the end of November, I finished Quiet by Susan Cain. This was one of the books that I read for our Shelf Sisters series, and I did a review on it, which you can watch if you care to. This subtitle here is The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. I did a full review on this, so I won't say much about it here, but this was lovely, very informational for me, helped me to understand myself. If you want a good piece of nonfiction and you identify as an introvert, and you haven't read this already, I would definitely recommend it. And then lastly, the last book that I read in the quarter was The Days Are Just Packed, which is a Calvin and Hobbes book by Bill Watterson. If you're not familiar with Calvin and Hobbes, this was a comic strip that was very popular in the United States about 20 or 30 years ago, I think, and you can still find pockets of people who really, really love them. But this is obviously a collection of his various comic strips, and there are a lot of words in here. Like, this is just wordier than you might expect a comic strip to be. So this was a slog I read on the very last day of 2020, and I'm glad that I did. It is cute. I love Calvin and Hobbes. If you didn't already know that, now you do. And if you have not explored them, the drawings are really lovely. Calvin is the most wonderful 6-year-old you'll ever encounter, probably in real life or in fiction. That's just my opinion. And there you have it. I would love to know what your reading goals are for 2021, what books you're looking forward to. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you want to know anything about us, it's probably in the description. I hope you're having lovely weeks and lovely lives, and we'll see you very soon.